are becoming more and more prominent as we move forward. You know, what are we seeing affecting retail and retail expansion? Well, obviously the economy. This is something we've talked about year in and year out. Much of it has been around the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., and, you know, we've post-November election, we still have that. But nevertheless, there seems to be some optimism we'll talk about in just a minute. Also, you know, first and foremost on every national retailer's mind is, you know, how are we dealing with e-commerce? You know, a lot of retailers are throwing money at it, and they're really trying to position themselves to better compete with Amazon. And then the Trump effect. You know what do we expect? You know, today, tomorrow, and next year. You know, that's something that really is first and foremost in a lot of people's minds. And then the millennials. You know, we've got a whole different group of consumers that we're having to market to today. Retailers are really trying to embrace, you know, how best to reach the millennial consumer. And you know, as just an intro, you know, retail is, you know, waxing, waning, is just undergoing incredible changes and challenges, and you know, e-commerce being one of them. And you know, again, as I said, how are retailers going to address this? And I think up to this point, they probably would have to say behind closed doors that they hadn't been very successful at being able to really come in and challenge Amazon. I know that we did a webinar post you know, Christmas holiday, and I believe for holiday sales, online sales, Amazon's market share was about 36-37%, and the closest retailer to them was Best Buy, and I think they were at roughly 3.5%. So you can see they are still dominant. So moving forward, the Trump effect. You know, one thing that we see, Aaron and I believe we're working in 10+ states right now, and there is a level of optimism. I mean, you know, there's also caution, but there is optimism, and you can see from this graphic, you know, consumer confidence is up. If you move beyond December 2016 into 2017, it was down just a bit in January. It was up again in February, and last month, March, it was the highest level since 2000. So that's, the consumer confidence was the highest level since 2000, which is 17 years ago, which is pretty incredible. So, you know, politics aside, there is a level of optimism that we're seeing in the industry. Millennials, you know, how to market to millennials is certainly becoming a huge issue, and really social media is, you know, first and foremost. You know, how can we reach that millennial shopper? You can see from this graphic, and I would say that it's probably a little bit low, but Americans check their social media accounts 17 times a day. I think it's probably twice that. But in 2015, you can see advertisers spent really about $8.3 billion on social media. 2017 is going to be over $35 billion. So what we're seeing is a clear trend of retailers really trying to be creative and look for, you know, you hear the term omni-channel marketing, you know, trying to use every marketing channel they can to reach the consumer. And 91% of the brands use 2 or more social media platforms. And I would say this as well, you know, we're talking about primarily national brands, but, you know, independents are going to have to really catch on too. Independents have as much pressure, if not more, than a lot of the national brands, just because they typically don't put money into marketing. So they're really, you know, behind the 8 ball, so to speak, when they're really trying to reach their consumers. And millennials spend about $2,000 on average a year online. and that's quite substantial. This, from the standpoint of competition, this cartoon really says a lot. In the window it says closing down, all books a penny, and then the quote is, I might see if we can get it online any cheaper. And again, that is the age that we live in. I was in an independent men's clothing store just last week. An independent merchant, really trying to be able to compete. He said, "Can you believe that people come in here with their apps and they will run a pricing check on my merchandise to see where they can get it cheaper?" And that's just it's called showrooming, where you walk in a showroom, check prices to see where you can get it cheaper. That's just, again, the age that we live in, and that's what national brands are going to have to learn to compete with. By the end of this year, online sales will equate to about 10% of total U.S. retail sales, which has been increasing at about a 10% per year clip for the last 5 or 6 years. How's that affecting bricks and mortar retail? Well, if you read the papers, you see that stores are closing all over the country. I think it was Payless just announced last week or so that they're closing 1,000 stores, and Sears and Kmart and Macy's, J.C. Penney, they've all received a lot of press. So what we're seeing is maybe a repositioning, that retailers are going to become a lot leaner and meaner from the standpoint of growth. And I think that a comment that I would have from the standpoint of us going through how to best take advantage of RECon is, when you go there, take all of this into consideration, because retailers are being much more specific in what their needs are, and they are looking for the absolute sure thing when they're making a location decision. So that's much of that is the byproduct of online sales and how cautious they are about how to compete with them. And you can see from this graphic that, from a standpoint of a mobile device, that 37% of shoppers start with a mobile device, but really at the end of it, only 21% bought an item after going to a bricks and mortar location. So bricks and mortar locations, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be the staple of retailing for years and years to come. But again, how to compete with online sales is super important, because it has just grown so rapidly. But again, 90% of retail sales after 2017 are still going to be conducted in bricks and mortar locations. So Walmart, Target, most of these major brands are really pushing hard to be able to compete with Amazon. And again, retailers still are asked by their stockholders to open stores. So there's going to continue to be new stores open. It's just they're going to be more discreet with their locations. Site selection is becoming much more scientific, and they're looking for the sure thing. So as you're approaching RECon and you're speaking to specific retailers, go prepared. Just don't go and say, "Hey, would you like to be in my community?" You need to go there and be ready to convince them why they need to be in your community. Not just with data. 2017 data is out. That's incredibly important. But also have in mind what types of locations they look for, and have in mind what specific locations within your community may fit their needs. So preparation in advance is really important to being successful. And again, here's some other brands or concepts and categories that are looking to expand in 2017. One of the things that we're seeing in our practice is the way that retailing is changing. It's becoming much more of an experience. You went from, if you had the best location in a market, then you were going to be successful with that retail venture. That's no longer the case now. What you've got to do is you have to offer the consumer an experience when they come into your store. It's called experiential retail. And here's just a couple of examples. And you're probably aware of the Whole Foods new really utilitarian concept called 365. It's smaller, about 25 to 30,000 square feet. And they're starting to have tattoo parlors, select apparel, really trying to, once they get somebody in the front door, they're really trying to sell them not just groceries, but other things. So they're offering multiple categories. Same way with Urban Outfitters. They just bought a pizza chain last year. So they're offering shopping for, the typical lines that they carry. And also you're able to buy beer and walk around with a piece of pizza. And, sort of our internal joke is, they really don't go together. Urban Outfitters are selling skinny jeans and those type things, and they're offering pizza. So, but what's happening, again, the net effect of this is they are being creative. They're offering an experience, and they're offering more than just one category item. They're offering multiple items. This is an example of a store. It's an upper tier store, Shinola, where they carry bicycles, they carry watches, they carry leather goods, and it is thriving. And, this is what we feel like and what we're sensing that a lot of these retailers are going to do as they shrink their footprints of their stores, is they're going to be selling specific items, and then they're going to be sending the consumer online for those large, big ticket items. So the goal is once they get them in the store, they're selling them something. So,
Kelly,
yeah.
One of the things too, just kind of looking at Shinola, kind of looking at what their marketing platform is, they're focused a lot on that millennial. So they're doing a really good job of paying attention to the millennials, what they're buying, what they look for. So I know we talked about millennials a little bit earlier, but just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I would encourage you. You can see we sourced this down the bottom right of the slide, Cushman & Wakefield retail trends in 2016. I would encourage you to Google that and look at it. It will really open your eyes to what is happening in the retailing industry. And again, regardless of the size community you're in, this is going to have an impact. We do a lot of work with independent retailers as well, a lot of downtown urban environments. And what we're telling them is, don't just open a women's clothing store. Don't just go in and say, I'm going to have one category. Have multiple categories in there. Have jewelry, have shoes, have complementary items. But as you can see from the Shinola example, you don't have to have complementary items. Your level of success depends on you selling that consumer something when they get in the door. And the more variety that you have, the better off you have as a chance of selling them something. And again, these are just some other brands that, if you could spend some time to look at maybe what their marketing approach is and what they're doing in the industry to really shake it up, I think this is something we're going to see more and more of in 2017 and beyond. And, I think, if I could just, with a closing thought, would be, retailing, we've always said it changes, and it's not a static thing, but the pressures that these national brands have on them, as well as the independence by online sales, is something that we're going to have to deal with in our practice, and you as a municipal leader dealing with the national brands and independents, that we're going to have to deal with going forward. So, Aaron, I will let you jump into ICSC and how to best approach it, and so everyone can be the most successful.
Great, Kelly. I appreciate it. And Kelly, before you, you've been attending RECon for probably 25 years now. Is that about right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Plus.
Yeah, 25 plus years. I might be giving away your age there a little bit, Kelly, but we at the Retail Coach, we've been attending and exhibiting and working with our clients at RECon for the last 17 years or so. And what we've thought has been good the last few years is we have been giving basically kind of some tips and some trends on what to expect at RECon this year, and for those of you that are first timers, or even if you've been out there 10 years, just some tips on really how to be successful. So real quick, just kind of a layout of the convention center, Las Vegas Convention Center, where they hold ICS. You can see it's really broken into three different halls. We've got the South Hall, we've got the Central Hall, and we've got the North Hall. Now, don't let the map deceive you. It takes a while to walk from one hall to the other. So the first thing we'll talk about is giving yourself enough time to really get to each of those halls. You can really see, the Central Hall, South Hall, and on this screen here, that's where a lot of your retailers, a lot of your developers are located. But there will also be quite a few this year retailers and developers in the North Hall as well. So you can kind of see that identified in green. That's where our booth is located, and a lot of activity happening in the North Hall this year. You can see on the screen here where the blue and white R is there. That's where our booth is located. I know you'll see towards the back of or towards the left of this map, but which is actually towards the back of the hall, is an area called Retailer Square. So a lot of the retailers and developers are mixed throughout the halls this year. So you want to make sure you spend enough time in each of those halls, and really pay attention to the booth location of who you're meeting with or retailers you'd like to talk to, because that will definitely be important. Now, the first goal or first tip we really have is to set realistic goals. Really, and Kelly, you might be able to expand on this, but don't go out to ICSC RECon expecting to make a deal. Look at this as a networking event, a networking conference. Go out there planning to meet people and make connections. You want to make sure you're attending the social functions, and then also you want to attend some of the educational seminars. Quite a bit of good information comes from those seminars that take place. We're actually going to be part of a panel this year, but there's a lot of good information on new retailers that are expanding. They typically have an event where they talk about the new retailers expanding, but a key for this is just, again, don't go out there expecting to make deals. Go out there, expecting to make connections. And that's key, especially if you're going to take some of your council and your board to the conference. Really manage their expectations, and you can start with that right now on what to expect at the conference.
Yeah, I would echo that, Aaron. And just through the years, it's become such a big part of our recruitment efforts for our clients going to RECon, and we have seen our clients, and it very well may be some of your situation, but where the council is going to be going, and for whatever reason, they just have the expectation that they're going to go out and they're going to speak to Starbucks and they're going to bring home a deal. I met with a gentleman last year from the state of Tennessee, a fairly small community, and that's what his expectation was. And that just doesn't happen. What you do, as Aaron said, it's an awesome networking opportunity. It's a place for you to exchange cards with who is responsible for expansion in your area, make the connection, follow up. But where deals are made out there are those that have been in the works for months and months, and they may be consummated over a cup of coffee with a face-to-face meeting. But your expectation is to go out, grab the card of the decision maker, and make sure they remember who you are.
Absolutely. Kind of on to that second tip or that second goal is preparation. We're about, like I said, 5.5 to 6 weeks out of the conference, and now is the time to really be preparing and getting ready for the conference, you've got to know your market. You're going to be talking to retailers, you're going to be talking to restaurants and developers that, one of the main things they're going to be interested in is what sites do you have available. So we'll talk about sites here again, but know what your community's demographics are, know what your retail trade area demographics are, make sure they're up-to-date demographics, 2017 data. We'll talk about that again in a minute, but really, really have all of that information that a retailer or developer could be asking for. And you've really got to be able to sell your community or pitch your community in about 3 minutes or less. You've got to convince them there is an opportunity, but really expect to get that question, what sites are available? Don't go out there, just trying to sell the market. Go out there selling your market, but then also having available sites ready to go. Marketing materials are key as well. We like to say keep it simple for ICSC. It's funny, at the end of the conference on that Wednesday afternoon, when you start walking out of the trade show halls, they'll have those big drum trash cans, and it's always kind of funny and sad at the same time to see these communities that have put together these large packets of information or large binders of information, and when you walk out of the hall, you see in those drum trash cans, you just see these binders just piled up in those trash cans. And part of it is these retailers have flown in, these developers have flown in, and they can't take a binder of information back. So make sure you're keeping it simple. If you have an iPad, make sure and have that iPad where you can send, sites, or you can send the marketing materials directly to that site selector, whoever you're talking to there. That is key. You want to keep it simple, though. Like I said, for our clients, what we do is we develop a front and back flyer, and we call that a retail market profile. And it's our recommendation that that's what you leave as a handout. Anything else can be emailed, or even if you have a flash drive that you can send, that's key as well. But what the iPad really does, it allows you to kind of access all of those marketing materials in one location. And like I said, you can email it out directly. What I like to do is, the night after the day at the ICSC is I'll do my follow-up emails then. So if I'm representing a client out there and we talk to a retailer that's definitely interested in maybe 2-acre pad sites or 3 acres, well, that night I'm going to be sending them the sites just so it's, firsthand and right there immediately. I talked about this just a second ago, but that front and back community marketing flyer is key. You want to show what your retail trade area map is, or how big your trade area is. You want to show what the demographics are. Can't stress it enough, but if you don't have 2017 demographics, you're behind the curve. If that's something we can help, you can feel free to call us or email us after this. But if you're going to go out there, don't take 2015 data. Don't take 2010 census data on your community. Make sure you've got 2017 demographics. And again, just to reiterate for the third time, keep it simple. Here's an example of a flyer we put together for the city of New Braunfels, Texas. And you'll see on there, we've got the demographics. We've got some traffic counts. We've got the contact info. This is key. If you're going to be handing out a flyer, make sure you've got your contact info on there, the one point of contact, so they're contacting you directly. We've also got on the back page, we've got a location map. You're going to be talking to a lot of retailers, a lot of restaurants, a lot of developers that are not from your state or are not familiar with their area. So you want to show in relation to maybe a larger city or region, kind of where you're located. And then we'll also include traffic counts on there as well. So the front and back flyer is key. Talking about strategy, kind of our tip number 5 here is you really have to have a strategy. Where I see a mistake by a lot of communities is they go out there just expecting to, walk in on day one and start making connections. Well, you probably could have a little bit of success that way, but really to have success, you've got to structure your day. You need to attend those workshops early and then visit the trade show halls or the leasing malls later in the day. You want to target and meet with retailers that fit your community. if you're a town of 2,000 and you don't have an interstate, Bass Pro is not probably somebody you want to meet with at ICSE. You don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to waste their time either. So make sure you're targeting and meeting with retailers that fit your community, and then sell your community first. So sell that trade area, but then have those sites ready to go, because that's key.
Aaron, if I could make a comment, and I think I do this every year, but one of our past clients for a number of years would take 5 to 6 people there, and they were incredibly strategic about their approach. They would have meetings before RECon to talk about who was responsible for contacting specific retailers, developers, and restaurants. And they were strategic about which halls they were covering. And they would meet at the end of the day to, just as Aaron said he did, to go ahead and send, thank you emails. And, again, the more organized you are and the more strategic you are in your approach, the more effective you will be. They have been effective for years because of their approach, and they're not looking at it as a vacation, because it is not a vacation. They're looking at it as a place to make connections, and they were very, very good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, taking that strategic approach, just being deliberate in your approach is something that, you really need to do. Just continuing talking about strategy here, invite these retailers to your community. Anytime you can get a site selector, you can get a retailer to your community, that just increases your chances so much of them opening a store or a location in your community. But don't just focus on retailers at ICSE. You also want to focus on the brokers and the developers. Really many times these brokers are the gatekeepers. So as you're starting to set up meetings, as you're starting to, kind of plan your ICSE strategy, don't just focus on retail, focus on where the brokers are located and developers as well. And you'll see, kind of taking that multifaceted approach, you'll see some definite success come from that. Many of you have had us complete a gap analysis, or you have a leakage analysis that you've been completed. Really fill those retailers that, fill those gaps or fill those leakage categories. If you have a large leakage in sporting goods, well, try to talk to Academy out there, maybe try to talk to Shields or some other sporting goods stores. And then try to match them with vacant space, land, and pad sites. Let's say you're, recruiting, you have a meeting with Chili's in Vegas. Well, make sure you have some space for them. If you've got an available property, Chili's, in my experience, usually looks for about 1 acre to 1.5 acres as far as that goes. So make sure and match up sites with these specific retailers. You want to, and I mentioned this already, but you really want to focus on retailers that fit your community. For example, In-N-Out Burger, and really every retailer and restaurant has criteria. They've got a certain traffic count that you have to have. Many of them, they have a certain trade area size, a certain building size. Look at that. A lot of that information can be found on the retailer's website. If you go to kind of the actual retailer's website and kind of look through their investor relations portion of it, or feel free to reach out to us. But just kind of goes back to targeting retailers that fit. Make sure they're expanding in your area too. If it's a retailer that's, only has a West Coast presence and you're on the East Coast, well, unless they're planning to move to the East Coast, I wouldn't waste your time. Make sure you know where their closest units are, and really be able to pay attention to that.
Yeah, let me make one comment, Aaron, on that. Is, just by the nature of what the retail coach does, we're retail recruiters. We're obviously talking to retailers all the time, and one of the things that retailers, site selectors complain about the most is that they get contacted by so many communities about interest in locating there, when in fact they're not expanding in that part of the country, they're not expanding in that state, or it could be Chili's and this community size is 2,000 people. So you know, you're much more apt to be successful if you put in just a little bit of research on the upfront, find out if they do match your community, your retail trade area size, you know, your ethnicity, you know, the income threshold. Again, try not to take the shotgun approach, but more the rifle approach of contacting those retailers that you have a good feel that you fit and that they fit your community.
Great. I appreciate that, Kelly. You know, real quick, I'll mention as well, if you go to the 2017 RECon page on the ICSC's website, they actually have a list of who's attending, and then also what exhibitors are there. It actually lists what company they're with. So I would really encourage you, you know, over the next few days to kind of take a look at that. Go ahead and put together a target list. Go ahead and try to start reaching out to some of these retailers and restaurants. You know, really, it's not the end of the world if you don't get a meeting set up. A lot of times, that's the case. If you don't get meetings set up with a specific retailer, many times they have a booth, so you can follow up with them that way. Maybe go talk to them on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward. But continuing talking about targeting, you need to create an elevator pitch. We talked about it earlier, but you need to really be able to sell your community in about 3 minutes. So just an example elevator pitch we put together for a community. You know, our community serves a regional trade area of approximately 95,000, and our prime retail anchors are Walmart, Kohl's, Hobby Lobby, Lowe's, Applebee's, and others. But we still have 8.5 million in restaurant leakage or restaurant demand. I feel we're a great pitch for Chili's. Your closest unit is 25 miles away. Can I have 10 minutes to meet with you? So you need to have that kind of that short pitch, whether you're putting it as an email asking for a meeting or you know, talking to them. Go ahead and practice. I know it sounds simple, but go ahead and really, you know, try practicing with other staff at the office or maybe your husband or your wife to just make sure that when you walk up to these retailers and restaurants, you've got that elevator pitch down to where you're not really having to look at paper. You know what you're going to say. That's key. Kelly, can you try to flip that slide on your end?
Mm-hmm. This does not seem to be advancing. Could be your Austin weather that you've been having.
Yeah, it could be. Technical difficulty here. Give us 1 second so we can flip the PowerPoint slide here. You know, while we're doing that, I'll just mention to you, ICSC is especially RECon, it's the largest retail real estate convention in the world, and you know, we stress it. There is a lot of good that comes out of ICSC, and we recommend to really all of our clients that you really attend that conference. But for those of you that maybe can't make it out to ICSC or RECon this year, really stress that you look at some of these regional conferences as well. There's the ICSC deal making conference that takes place, for example, if you're a Texas community in Dallas. And then there's also, if you're a community from, let's say, kind of the Illinois, kind of Midwest style area, there is the ICSC Chicago conference. So really pay good attention to the regional conferences as well, because a lot of times at these regional conferences, that's where a lot of our clients see the most success is at these, you know, kind of at these regional conferences. There's also another one that's coming up that's really a similar style to ICSC events. There's one called the Retail Live Conference. And I know there's one happening here in Austin because that's where I'm at. There's one happening August 31st. I think this week, actually, there was one in Orlando. There was one a couple of months ago in Chicago. So pay attention not only to ICSC, but pay attention to Retail Live as well. Those are really coming up. You know, we've got a question. I'm gonna hit on a couple of questions here real quick that we've had come in. You know, one of these questions are, we talked about those new trendy events that are taking place, or those new trendy retailers that are opening up. they and Charlie, a good friend of ours, Charlie Smith, had a question: are they attending ICSC? And in the past we had seen mostly it being national retailers and restaurants, but now we're seeing really these regional and even some of these smaller retailers really taking advantage of ICSC. So a lot of these retailers, a lot of these maybe smaller, medium-sized retailers and restaurants will be at the conference. So don't just go after the national retailers, Charlie, but go after some of those regional and even some of those smaller, more experiential retailers that Kelly mentioned. Another question we had was, for a small community with only a couple of national retailers, how can a community do a quick and dirty identification of their retail trade area? The question is asked, should we focus on drive times? And I'll tell you, from a trade area standpoint, I would stay away from drive times. Radials and drive times are becoming a thing of the past. And unless you are a very urban type location, radials and drive times are really something of the past. So there's some new ways to determine trade area, and that's so I would look at some of the cell phone analysis, which is pretty affordable. That's something we do, and then you could just go in and talk to your retailers and restaurants and try to find out where the consumers are coming from as well. But it looks like we got our slides flipping again. So real quick, a few more slides we want to talk to you about is, really we create a hit list of retailers and brokers. So, you might have a list of 25 retailers that you want to talk to at the conference. Pay close attention to what their hall location is and their floor address, and then try to work the floor methodically. What I recommend to a lot of our clients is they look at, and try to hit up one hall a day, or one hall a morning and then another hall the afternoon. So if you notice, 10 retailers that you're looking to target are in that north hall, well, maybe make Tuesday morning focus on the north hall. That's something that is key there. But like I said, work the floor methodically, and then identify the site selector. Most of these retailers that have a booth, most of them will have a little flyer out front that you can pick up, and it'll actually have the contact person for your region. So make sure and pick up those flyers for these retailers as well. In our experience, really the most productive time for just drop-ins, if you don't have a meeting set up with a retailer, really Wednesday morning or towards the first half of the day is really the best time. So Wednesday morning at say 8 a.m., 9 a.m., try to be at that retailer's booth that you haven't had a chance to talk to. And a lot of times you'll be able to just do a retailer drop in there and have a good conversation Wednesday. A lot of people go home on Tuesday night, so Wednesday, for those that stick around, is really a good time to do that.
I would say this too as well. If you're not going to be there on Wednesday, try hitting these retailers' booths at the end of the day or toward the end of the day, what you may consider just sort of less peak hours. Early in the morning, to later in the day sometimes is the most beneficial because, other than the first day, it just not a lot of people get there early. I worked a number of years for a national retailer, and I was sort of on the other side. I was the one people wanted to meet with. And so, just like Aaron said, be very aware of where you're located, in the halls, and not make a meeting in the North Hall and then, 30 minutes later you have one in the South Hall. You have to be very aware of the geography, or you're going to be late for meetings the entire time you're there.
Yeah, and that's especially important because these retailers, these developers, typically they have a packed schedule. So you want to make sure you're on time. So like Kelly said, just make sure if you've got a meeting in the South Hall, it's going to take you a good 10 or 15 minutes to get to the North Hall. So just plan your schedule accordingly. We can't stress how important follow-up is. Maybe even more important than being at the conference. Following up is key. I mentioned that I like to follow up with the contacts I make the same day. So back when I'm at the hotel at night, I'll follow up with just a quick email. But by the time you get back into your office on that Monday or that Tuesday, after the conference, make sure you're following up, having that site specific information available. If they ask for something specific, just make sure you've got that ready to go and in their email box. Name recognition is very important. You want to keep your name and your community in front of the retailer, but just because I wouldn't get too down if a retailer at RECon tells you that they're not interested now. That could change quickly. So a no now could be a yes or a maybe 6 months from now. So want to stress to be persistent but not pesky. It's a slow process. Don't plan on attending ICSE for 1 year. Really plan on attending multiple years. You can't just focus on retail 1 year. So I think that's very important. And really wanted to see if there's any other questions. Just a couple of things to kind of finish this off. ICSE is, like I said, is extremely important to attend. You really need to make sure you have a strategy going out there. You need to start working on your strategy now and make sure you have those marketing materials. Make sure you have updated demographics. Make sure you keep it simple. But if you do have any questions after this, and I think we've got a few other questions that have come in, and if you have any, feel free to put those in the question box right now. But if you have any questions for Kelly or I, you can call us or you can shoot us an email at info@theretailcoach.net. And if you need help with demographics or just need to talk to somebody for a little bit more detailed information, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'll be able to help with that. I had a question come in about the social engagements. How do we hear about those? And so if you look on ICSE's website, they've already posted a couple of social events on there. I know there's one on Sunday. That's kind of the kickoff. A lot of times, some of the best conversations happen, over a drink or over some hors d'oeuvres, just waiting for, or just at some of these social events. So look on ICSE's website. Also, a lot of these retailers, a lot of these brokers, a lot of these developers in your region, they'll host receptions out there. At the Retail Coach, we'll have a couple of receptions at our booth on Monday and Tuesday as well. So some of the best communication or some of the best times can happen really at those social events. I've been part of those. I had one last year where a developer came to our reception and really focused, was just came to get a drink, but we were able to match them up with one of our communities that was there, one of our clients, and that developer is now doing a deal. It's been about a year, but they're now doing a deal in that community. So that's key.
And I would say this. Let me say this, and this is super simple, and it's it sounds so basic, but it really works. Is when you're out there, when you're flying out, wear something that has your branded community logo. When you're, you never know who you're going to sit next to on the airplane. The same goes for when you're, either, in a taxi line going to the conference, or you're on the tram going to the conference, because the person you're standing next to or sitting next to could be a retailer, restaurant, or developer that has been to your community. Everyone out there is a prospect at some level. So, work that accordingly. And as we've said, really take the approach of being as scientific as you can in determining the retailers you want to meet with. And don't get your feelings hurt if somebody says, I just don't have the time to meet with you, because if there's no interest in your community at this point, they will probably be reluctant to meet with you. So just take it for what it is and go to that next prospect, because they very well may meet with you.
Yeah, definitely. And Kelly, we had another question come in that is for you. What are the top 5 most important pieces of demographic information?
Easy for me. Retail trade area population is what the retailers are going to base their interests off of, not your community population, but your retail trade area population. Within that, they're going to look for your projected growth. You know, if you're a retail trade area population in 2017 of 100,000, they're going to know that, you know, they can expect within 5 years that you're going to have a growth pattern take place. Ethnicity is obviously very important because a lot of brands cater to a certain ethnic mix. Age is very important, as you can imagine, to retailers. And, you know, if it's a retailer that's forever 21 or one of those that caters to a younger crowd, they're going to want to know what the age of the populations are. Then you go into really what I would consider, you know, other than population, the most important is incomes. They're going to know that there is enough disposable income from the consumers in that retail trade area that they can buy their goods.
Yeah. Kelly, I appreciate that. And also, it's not necessarily demographic information, but another part of that is traffic counts. And it's important to have up-to-date traffic counts. So, you know, that's going to be important, especially to some of those fast food restaurants, some of those sit-down restaurants, and really some of the retailers too. But just to add on to that, as far as demographic information goes, make sure you have really up-to-date traffic counts. I think that's all of the questions we have. If you have others, like I said, feel free to just shoot us an email at info@theretailcoach.net, or feel free to give us a call. But we have recorded this presentation or this webinar, and we'll be sending that recording link out later today. So if you want to share this with any of your additional staff that are attending, or board members or anything like that, feel free to do so. But Kelly, thank you for your time, and everybody, thank you for your time for joining us. And we will hopefully see all of you soon out at ICSC RECon.